Really think it's time for people to open up to the fact that Marvin Harrison Jr. could possibly win the Heisman Trophy. It's definitely a possibility at this point. As we look at it at this point, he's probably around fourth or fifth in the official power rankings to win the Heisman at this point. But like I said earlier, it's a lot more of a possibility now, and he only needs to do, in my opinion, really one thing. But obviously, there's going to have to be a few other factors that really come down for him to do this. Because I think right now we have about a 3-guy race at this point. I think, well, we got a 4-guy race. Michael Penix Jr., obviously, he's in the lead right now. But I could see Washington possibly slipping up to another opponent. They've played kind of sketchy. It's him losing Bo Nix with Oregon. Like I said, who knows? Maybe they lose to Washington again. Obviously, that might uplift Michael Penix, but I don't think it'll. I have a feeling that it doesn't really come down to either of them. I feel like they possibly play themselves out. Now, I could be wrong, but I think it's a possibility. I'm keep an eye on J.J. McCarthy right there. His numbers aren't that great, but if he is on the best team in college football, if they do beat Ohio State, then he would probably end up getting the nod for the Heisman. But Marvin Harrison Jr., if Ohio State is the best team in college football and he has about 200 yards and possibly a touchdown or two against the Michigan Wolverines, and Ohio State goes in there and beats them, then I assume that he would win the Heisman. I think that's possibly his path, and I think it's probably going to be the winner of that game that does it. It's going to be, they're going to look at who's the best player on the best team and who showed up in the biggest moment. There's no bigger moment than if you're Marvin Harrison Jr. on Ohio State beating another Heisman candidate in J.J. McCarthy in Michigan. It would be an unbelievable win if he's able to get 200 yards in that game, maybe even 150 and 2 touchdowns, which, as what we've seen in previous weeks, this is definitely a possibility. Definitely a possibility, definitely a shot at this. If you look at his numbers, it's not even that crazy. He's got already through 9 games, he's got 914 yards, he's got 10 TDs. That's pretty solid stats. I think he's a shoo-in, obviously, to win the Biletnikoff, the best wide receiver trophy. But like I said, if Ohio State, which they will be undefeated going into that game, they will be 11-0. Michigan, I assume, will be undefeated going into that game. I see them crushing Penn State this week. And I see them undefeated that game. If Marvin Harrison Jr. travels into Michigan against another Heisman candidate in J.J. McCarthy, gets around 150 to 200 yards, 1 or 2 TDs, and they win, and he's the best player, you got to give the nod to Marvin Harrison Jr. in that regard. They're not going to lose the Big Ten championship. They're not going to lose to Iowa. So they're going to be undefeated, go into the playoff. He's going to have that impressive win against, well, it's going to be the best win in the country if it falls. And I just see it possible. And you have to look at the quarterback play of OSU. This isn't like previous years. You don't have C.J. Stroud out there. You don't have a guy like Justin Fields. You don't even have a guy like J.T. Barrett. You have one of the worst QBs, although he's a system dude, and he's able to win the Buckeyes a national championship in my odds. You have one of the worst quarterbacks you've had in over a decade. And Marvin Harrison Jr. is still putting up these numbers at an insane clip. So like I said, he's got a path. There's definitely a path here to win the Heisman. I think it's a possibility. He's not eliminated by any stretch. I think if he goes into Michigan, into Ann Arbor, and this OSU team is able to beat that Michigan team, I think he'll get the nod for the Heisman Trophy. Obviously, he has to have 200 yards, but for OSU to win that game, he's going to have like 200 yards. So I have full belief that if those things do fall, he would indeed win the Heisman Trophy.